Madagascar is suffering from an outbreak of plague. Is plague still even a thing? Did it really kill 1/3 of people in medieval times? And who exactly are these guys? First things, the plague is not the same thing as a plague. Plague, with a capital P, is the common name of a disease caused by the bacteria Yersinia pestis. The other plague is a generic term for a disease outbreak that infects many people. Plague infection in humans is typically characterized by buboes. Buboes are swollen inflamed lymph nodes in the neck, groin, or armpit area. Ugh, God, sorry. Those are boobas. These are buboes. Can't tell which one is worse. Either way, they're bad news. Human outbreaks are typically started when you get bit by a flea that is fed on an infected rodent. This is zoonotic transmission, when a disease is transmitted from an animal to a human. Interestingly, 60% of human pathogens are zoonotic, including diseases like Ebola, flu, and anthrax. Maybe global extinction is a good thing. Think about that the next time you go and save an endangered species. You are probably most familiar with Yersinia pestis as being the cause of the Black Death. Yes, that Black Death, the one that caused the deaths of more than a third of Europe during the 14th century, and even helped pave the way for the Renaissance, without which we wouldn't have had Renaissance fairs of today. This plague killed up to 50 million people. How do we know it was actually Yersinia pestis that caused it and not some other disease? The answer, like many important medical discoveries, involved digging up dead bodies. Recently, scientists exhumed the bodies of 4 plague victims in a London cemetery and extracted a DNA sample from their teeth. They sequenced this DNA sample and discovered that it was indeed Yersinia pestis that caused the Black Death. So, where did it come from, and how did it infect and kill nearly half of Europe's population? Mongols. Well, not quite, but sort of. While we most associate the 1300s with European medieval history, it was also the time of Mongols, and more specifically Pax Mongolica. Mongol Khanates spanned from Korea to what is modern-day Ukraine, providing stability that allowed trade to flourish along the Silk Road. Along with the goods and ideas that flowed from the Far East to Europe, rodents and fleas carried Yersinia pestis from Central Asia. It eventually arrived in Sicily on October 1347 and spread quickly throughout Europe. The outbreak was so deadly, there was even accounts that there were not enough survivors to bury the dead. You have to remember at the time that people didn't know what bacteria or viruses were, what caused infectious diseases. They assumed that it was God's punishment for their sins. For the more scientifically literate at the time, they attributed the outbreak to the ancient Greek theory of miasma. They assumed the disease was spread by bad air, better known as miasma, which contained the weird smell of rotting matter. Brings us to this guy, the plague doctor. Plague doctors treated the disease to the best understanding of the time, which in this case means bad smells caused the spread of disease. If bad smells cause the spread of disease, it might be possible to mask that bad smell with a good smell. Then there would be no disease as a result. How could you argue with that logic? The plague doctors wore a uniform that leveraged this knowledge. The long beak of their mask contained fragrant herbs and flowers and straw that could mask the bad scent. Perhaps they thought this was a comforting face for delirious patients on their deathbed. Perhaps modern hospitals could learn a thing or two about making patients comfortable. Another really interesting fact about plague and miasma is that the nursery rhyme Ring Around the Rosies is actually about this spread of disease. We can all agree that children are creepy, but this innocuous nursery rhyme takes the cake. If you listen to the lyrics,
"Be a pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, we all fall down."
the ring around the rosies refers to both buboes and rashes, symptoms of the plague. The posies refer to both flowers and herbs, which were used to help counter the miasma. The lasting impact of the Black Death on European history cannot be underestimated. The massive culling of the continent caused social, economic, political, and religious upheaval. With the death of nearly half of Europe's population within a decade, there was a massive shortage of workers to till the land. With this shortage, workers could demand higher wages, which led to lower income inequality and the dismantling of serfdom. It is even thought that the Black Death contributed to the emergence of the Renaissance. With such turmoil, people started questioning the status quo. Plague killed both the good and the bad, the rich and the poor, and the noble and the commoner. Previous religious or political systems were not able to explain how the world worked. This caused people to begin to question their assumptions about the world, and it is thought that this helped lay the seeds that would grow into the Renaissance a century later. So, if Yersinia pestis is so deadly, why don't we get it anymore? Actually, we do. But because of modern medicine and public health, it's no longer quite the problem it used to be. With the advent of modern hygiene practices, rodent control, and the discovery of antibiotics, we are better able to control plague outbreaks and prevent them from occurring. However, plague is still an issue to many regions of the world, including the western part of the United States and Madagascar and Africa. Is it ever possible to eradicate plague like we have with other diseases? It's unlikely. Trying to eradicate a disease that exists naturally amongst an animal population like rats or prairie dogs or fleas would be next to impossible. Unfortunately, it looks like plague will be plaguing us till our dying day.